Live. One sec. Premium account. Club. Oops, James. Slide. Yeah, slide problem. Okay. Yeah. So, welcome everyone. Welcome back. This is a 7 p.m. live from Goa. Almost sharp on time. We are a minute late. Today we have an interesting guest as always. And the guest is someone who went into computing very early, picked up Spanish, speaks it like a native speaker, if I may say so, and is a homegrown youngster from Goa itself. Now back in Goa, we are happy to have with us this evening Jaime de Melo from Moira. So Jaime is my old schoolmate. A bit of nepotism here. But whenever I meet him, we keep talking, we start talking, and we don't end for an hour or two later. So I thought I'll drag him online and I'll get Jaime to tell you his own story. So, Jaime, today we want to focus on two things. One is your encounter with computers and your encounter with Spanish, not necessarily in that order. Tell us whichever one you want to start with. I know they are both fascinating stories. Maybe Spanish first.
Okay, well, thank you, Fred, first and foremost, for this opportunity. I think it's the first time anybody has interviewed me, so I'm feeling flattered right now. Yeah, I think I'll begin with Spanish because it is interesting, but it's connected to my with the whole computing and IT because I started. I
Sorry
guess
for
my
butting
love.
in.
Yeah,
Sorry for butting in. But just to give some context, I don't like to talk much here, but to give some context. So Jaime
yeah.
was this guy who grew up with us in the late 70s in Mapsa in this small village school. And then he studied in Goa for a while. He studied commerce, if I'm not mistaken. And
Yes,
then
Temple College.
Tempo College. And then he just vanished from the scene. And we met him many years later, maybe a good 20 years later on the internet. GoaNet was very popular in that period. And as we go along, you'll get our story. But here's this young man who went from Goa to America, studied many kinds of things. So over to you, Jan. Sorry.
Okay, so yeah, so my love affair with Spanish happened when I was at the university, Minnesota State University at Mankato, a small town, Midwest, Midwestern part of the United States. And I went there, of course, to study computer science, having already worked three and a half years in the Gulf in that area. I was a programmer, but my first exposure to computing or learning anything about computers was in the UK, studying programming on the mainframe. But we'll come back to that later. So when I went to the States to do my computer science, it's a 4-year degree course. And in addition to your major field, which would be computing in my case, you had to take general education. So there were within general education, there were electives. So there were certain things which were compulsory or mandatory, as the Americans said, and within the mandatory requirements categories, you could choose. So, for example, you had to take a foreign language, but within the foreign language category, you had choices. So you had German, you had Spanish, and you had French. And so I thought to myself, German, I don't think so. I don't ever plan to go to Germany except as a tourist, perhaps. French, I've never liked it. I never took French at school. I took Konkani and Marathi. We can come to that later. It's a different thing. And so I said Spanish. Okay, yeah. These are their neighbors are they're Portuguese neighbors, right? They're in that same area. So, and we were a Portuguese colony, so it makes sense for me to take Spanish. Besides, I'm living in the United States where there are sizable Hispanic population. So if I learn this language, it might actually come to some use.
So when I
And
met up last time with you in December 2023, you were at this show in Mapsa and you met a musician from Colombia or somewhere, and he was so zapped that someone could speak Spanish in Goa. From where was he?
He was not from Colombia. I think he was some other place which I've forgotten now, either Peru or Chile or somewhere, but he was not from Colombia. But I will tell you something that happened to me just last week.
Yeah,
I go to a gym here in Parra, and
yeah.
at the gym, I met a Colombian, a Colombian woman. You know, she was just working out next to me. I didn't want to disturb her. You know, she was there. She was working out. I knew she was not a Goan, and I have a hunch. I'm very good at kind of guessing people's nationalities, and I love when they open their mouth. I can tell you, even if it's an English, I can, by their accents, I can tell you which part of the world they're from. You know, even if they speak English, I can tell a South African, I can tell the American accent from a Canadian accent, and so on. So I'm good, even with Spanish. You know, if somebody they just have to open their mouth. So this one was not opening her mouth because she was exercising, you know, and had her headphones on. But I was tempted to say hello. I said, no, no, no. You know, she might think this guy is trying to hit on me or something. So second time I go there, again, she is right in the same spot that I'm also warming up. And again, I was too shy, you know. The third time I said, no, I have to say hello. So I went and said hello in English. And I said, are you from Latin America by any chance? She said, yes, I'm from Colombia. And then, of course, I switched to Spanish. And so we're good friends now. So she's shocked. She was zapped that, and she asked me, where are you from? I said, I'm from Goa. I'm a native of this place. You need to know anything about this place, just let me know. If you need to do translation with the trainers, if the staff harass you, just let me know, you know. So we now talk, you know, we're like friends. So this is the beauty of knowing a second language, you know, a foreign
So
language.
how seriously would you rate your Spanish speaking ability now? Do you read
Second,
books? I thought I had books
second,
with you in
second to
Spanish.
English. I would say second to English, and I have a certification. My certification is C1. In 2022, I wanted to get a certification, and C1 is not the highest. C2 is the
It's very
highest.
high up there, quite up there, but
It's
it's
very high.
almost there.
With a C1, you can get a government job in Spain. So
because
that's the
because it's A1, A2, B1, B2, and C1. You know, C1.
C1, yes, and I did have intention of doing C2, but I don't know. Maybe I might pursue it at some point.
So, James, Jamie, I want to drag you away from the formal story, and I want to get you to tell some of the juicy bits of this story because it's so interesting. You said you think you have a love for languages. Yeah, why?
Yeah. Okay. The love for languages, I discovered it later, actually, Fred, because if you ask your brother, who was my classmate, I think I was more like a fly on the wall throughout my school. I was not, you know, I never stood out either for studies or for sports or for drama or anything. I was basically your average guy, okay? And I struggled with school. I struggled with science, math. You know, I got a lot of beating from my math teachers and so on. You know, and uh, but I noticed that English, I did well. Those days, Marathi and Hindi, I did well. For some reason, I connected, but at that point, I didn't think that I was good. I just felt like these are subjects that I don't fail. You know, these are subjects that I do okay naturally. See, it is only when I took Spanish at the university in the US, the feedback that I started to get from the teachers told me I have something special connected with languages. Because as I was going back to that story, so I decided I'm going to take Spanish. I'm going to opt for Spanish. So I had to take the first year elementary beginning Spanish. So I took beginning Spanish. Okay, I think it was 1, 2, 3, the first year or something. I finished the three semesters, three trimesters in those days, and my teacher, I get a straight A plus plus, and my teacher comes and says, "You are a natural at this. I know your prerequisite is finished, but I would highly recommend. You're so good, you should take intermediate." So guess what? I was also enjoying it, and you know, it was a nice break for me from my heavy duty computer science classes. You know, so this was like I did this for fun, you know. I mean, there were in my Spanish class, there were people whose major was Spanish, and they were going to be like teachers, you know, high school teachers wanted to be. Most of them were Americans, and they were struggling. And here I am doing this for fun, and I'm like A plus plus, right? So I took intermediate. I do 3 trimesters of intermediate, and my teacher goes, Jaime, you are natural, by the way. In Spanish, my name is pronounced Jaime. So Jaime, you have to continue do advanced. So I signed up for advanced courses, advanced grammar. I took a literature, beginning Spanish literature, and then my teacher changed. My teacher changed, and she fell in love with me. She said, "You have to continue." Long story short, I finished my basically my 4 years. Well, I finished it in 3 years, but I finished my whole undergraduate level. And when I was done with my undergraduate, I end up with 2 graduate, you can call them scholarship. One is from the computer science department as a graduate assistant, which would be basically correcting papers and occasionally helping the teacher, the main teacher. And I got another graduate assistantship in the Spanish department to teach beginning Spanish. So the very class that I did, I took, of course, the Spanish. I said the computer science is always going to be part of my life. I want to take this up. So I taught beginning Spanish to be the first year students for 1 trimester. And during that time, I signed up as a graduate student taking only Spanish graduate studies. So high level advanced grammar and Spanish literature, Hispanic literature, Hispanic civilization courses. So
So do you think that Goans have a natural affinity to the languages?
I wouldn't be able to generalize, but I have a gut feel that yes, we do. And I think generally Indians, our situation. We all speak English, most of us, okay? And then we have mandatory requirement to take the national language, Hindi, and then we have to take a third language now, and then we're speaking another language at home. Like in my case, I was speaking Konkani at home. Then I'm having to take, then I have English is my medium of instruction. Then I'm forced to take Hindi. And then for foreign language, I take Marathi. So look at my situation. I'm already a polyglot, without wanting to.
Right. And actually, if I may add to it, while I was just compiling a list, I found, I think Peter Nazareth, the literator, was the first person who said that Goans have written in 13 languages. And when I actually went to compile a list, I found that Goans had written in 19 or 20 different languages, written and
Wow.
got published. So like, because these small cultures generally tend to need outside languages. Like you can't sustain on your own. It's not
Yeah.
like, say, Marathi speakers or German speakers who have everything in their own language.
Yeah.
But to just shift gears a bit, tell us the story about Otra June, and now we are
Okay.
talking about Konkani and your translation of this poem. Tell
Fred,
us.
you will have to help me because I really have really bad memory for some things. For certain things, very good memory. I have selective memory. So I've forgotten. I do know that I was quite involved during that time on, I think it was GoAnet, right? And
Yeah.
people were asking for help in translation. And, I was in the world of the blind, I was the one with the one eye. And I did what I could, but I've forgotten the 18th June poem. So you'll have
So
to,
actually, if I could narrate it from what I remember, probably
yeah,
in the late 90s, early 2000s, Jaime got it into his mind that he would translate the famous poem on 18 June by Manohar Rai Sardesai. So he translated it from Konkani into English, and he collaborated with Samil Kelekar, who is also a computer scientist with a deep interest in languages. So together, both of them put this poem together, and many people were quite surprised by when they saw it in English, because its appeal suddenly got enhanced and grew. And not only that, one of his country cousins, a villager from Moira, also, that Shamika Andrade, has actually 3 or 4 or 5 years ago put it down in 4 or 5 different languages. I think there's Portuguese, French, English, Konkani, of course, and maybe Marathi also. So, this shows the power of translations. And I think, Jaime, you all were the first guys to remember this poem, which deals with a historic day in Goa's history, which was
Yeah.
the 18th of June, part of the civil liberties movement in 1946 and all that.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe I can do the translation now to Spanish. So there's the further
One more
expansion.
language. One
Yes,
more language.
yes, yeah.
Tell us about your experiences with learning Konkani in Goa. Of course, you say you always spoke it.
Yeah. So for me, I grew up speaking Konkani. I didn't have an option. So I was just sharing this on our WhatsApp group. So our 77 batch, the 10th standard batch, we have a WhatsApp group. So we're active. And recently, that I posted something on the dictionary. I was so thrilled to get a copy of that dictionary. And I don't think that is just, as I said, to a coincidence, because sometimes things work in strange ways. I always had this desire. I wanted a good English dictionary, either that or a full-time priest walking along with me throughout to do the translation for me. I really envy the priests in Goa. I always listen to their sermons intently, not only for the spiritual message, but also for new vocabulary, because I'm fascinated. I always pick something new. Like the latest word, that I'm stuck on is Soho Bagili Porn, which it seems to be repeated a lot. And I think it
What's
has,
it? What's it? Explain. Hold on. Explain. What's it?
okay, so Soho Bagili Porn has something, it had a connection to, the whole synodality of the church, the synod church, the synodality, which means togetherness and everything together. Everybody is one and so on. That's something that the synod has. And so, everybody, that's like the jargon now in the church. Everyone has that jargon, right? So synodality is the jargon in the Catholic Church. And so part of synodality, being a synodal church, I would say, is walking together. Soho Bagili Porn. Bagili Porn is together. You're walking together. So hand in hand, everybody walking towards whatever our mission is, whether it's evangelization, reaching out, charity, social activism. Soho Bagili Porn. So I love that word, Soho Bagili Porn. Every time I hear that, I kind of, oh. So I had this knack. If I hear a word, I'll grab it like a dog grabs a bone. I will not let go of it till it's ingested in my system. That's how I'm with any language. It's not just, and the only reason I'm not fluent in maybe 10 languages is because I'm lazy. It's just that I could do the same with Marathi because the methodology is the same. Once you've mastered one language, you can use the same techniques, same methodology to master another one. It's just a matter of priorities and time. So
What is the technique? What is the technique?
well, I think before I even talk about technique, I would say you have to have the passion. For me, languages is a passion. For me, Spanish is a passion. I fell in love with Spanish because to me, it was not just syntax and stories. I fell in love with the culture because, the stories that, especially when I got to Spanish literature and drama and, theater, in Spanish. For example, there is a famous, we studied the drama, famous dramatist, Spanish dramatist from 1936 during the Spanish Civil War. From the south, from Granada, Federico Garcia Lorca. Oh, your namesake. Federico Garcia Lorca was a wonderful poet, a dramatist. He wrote a lot of prose as well. So I fell in love with these authors. I fell in love with writing and the culture. And I could relate because there were some similarities. For example, there is a famous play by Lorca named Casa de Bernarda Alba, okay? And it has to do with Casa de Bernarda Alba is the house of Bernarda Alba. Okay, so this is it's a commentary on what was going on, the repression during the civil war in Spain. People were repressed, and Lorca himself was gay, and he was persecuted and eventually murdered, and so he was. So this repression, this in this play, in this theatrical work, he brings out this whole oppressive society, and he does it by in a family. The mother is is dictatorial, and the daughters are asked they have to stay home. There are multiple daughters. They're not allowed to go out, so they have to sneak out and go, even if they're going to date somebody. And then when somebody dies, you have to do all this elaborate wearing black, and you cannot go out, and this whole thing, traditional, oppressive kind of a regime. So I got into that because there were many things, the dialogues in there. I could relate to Goa, believe me, especially growing up in the 60s and 70s when the Portuguese culture had just left, but it was still hanging in the air, right? I grew up with my parents. There were so many Portuguese words you would hear, and we were very traditional. When I looked at that household, I said, "Oh my God." When somebody dies, the funeral, the elaborate funeral, people coming and crying, they cry for a while, they get tired, they stop, and then some close relative comes on a drop of a hat, they start crying again, and all this poetry that they recite when they cry, all of this drama, I could see it. And so I connected. An American will not be able to connect. No wonder they're getting C plus, C minus, B plus grades, and I'm getting A plus plus. I can relate to this culture. The only thing I need to pick up is the syntax. I need to pick up the grammar. That's it. And there, it's a technique. So once you love something, and you love journalism, obviously, you love writing, you like reading, it comes naturally. I love reading. Nobody has to force me to read a book. For me, a book is like, you give me a book and you give me a cup of coffee, you put me in a room, I will not come out, even for food. But so it's a passion, and a passion is not a technique. You cannot take a pill. You cannot go to the market and say, "Give me passion for reading, half a kilo, please." you know so that's how it is for languages. You need to have a passion, because I've given some classes in Spanish. I tried to do this, and I saw that these students didn't have the passion. Somebody had told them, you need to do this, you need to learn a foreign language, and I could say, this is not worth it, for whatever it is, 500 rupees, 1000 rupees. I'd rather be reading a book in Spanish, or doing my own development and learning in that time that I waste trying to force something down somebody's throat. So passion, I would say passion. And then techniques, I've learned many. Repetition, I'll give you a very simple technique. You can apply this not just to learn languages, anything that you memorize. This is simple. So for example, one of the common things when you learn Spanish is conjugation. Okay, so let's take the simple word hablar. Hablar is to talk. So how would you conjugate? Yo hablo, tú hablas, él habla, ella habla, usted habla, nosotros hablamos, vosotros habláis, y ellos, ellas, ustedes hablan. So hablo, hablas, habla, hablamos, habláis, hablan. Now you repeat this. You repeat this 10 times, over and over like a parrot, and you get it. Okay, so that's repetition. Now, there's more than repetition. In any language, there are patterns. Have you noticed? All verbs ending in AR will have the similar conjugation, the ending. So, o, a, as, amos, ais, an. So you grab that pattern, and you can now master any verb that ends with R, except the known irregular ones. Those are like I call them the black sheep. So those are the ones they are the exceptions. You just have to learn them. It's the same thing for verbs ending in ER, like tener is to have. Okay, so tengo, tengo, tienes, tenéis, tenemos. No, sorry, not tenéis. Tengo, tienes, tiene, tenemos, tenéis, tienen. So en. So again, the similar endings for this. So there are patterns. So you grab those patterns, and then you have to learn the exceptions. And you learn through repetition. And this I learned from my first teacher. I'll never forget it. Now, coming back to your point, how did you know that you have a knack for languages? This teacher not only became my best favorite Spanish teacher, she became my teacher for life, because I'll be very frank, Fred. I told you I was very average in school. And that's because not that I was dumb or not intelligent. Obviously, I didn't suddenly become intelligent, it was there. But the potential was there, but nobody got it out of me, neither my parents, nor my neighbors, nor my teachers. And so I kind of remained that way till I took Spanish. And this teacher boosted my, how can I say, my self-esteem, because she kept feeding back to me, you're good at this. You're unusually good at this. You got to pursue this. You have to pursue this, to the point that I ended up almost taking grad level classes, and my dream was to do my doctorate in Spanish and to teach at the university level, to become a professor. Unfortunately, because of my Spanish, I met a Spanish girl in my senior year, and we got married. So, because of the marriage, and if you get married, you have to be financially secure, and so I had to get a job in IT, and that's how I abandoned
We'll
Spanish.
talk about IT. We'll talk about IT in the second part. But
Yes.
you, before we forget it, you were making a point about Konkani a little while back, and this is a good segue to get into this song which you subverted. It's a famous Konkani song which you subverted and you sang, and people mistook you as the singer and thought it was someone else.
Yeah.
You want to tell us a story after the song? Maybe that would be more fun. First, we'll play the song. I want
Yeah.
the audience to tune in and note how Jaime has subverted a very popular Konkani song. Okay, so Jaime will just play the song now, and here goes. You can play it.
Okay. So
Just
I
start
need
it.
to play it from here, right?
Yeah, just
Okay.
start it.
Let me just start from the beginning.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. One second. I think I have to go to the original.
Yeah, the original tab and just click on play. But as a word, it's a Sanjuan
Okay.
song.
Wait. Yeah. Go ahead, Fred.
Go ahead. It's a Sanjuan song. That's all I want to
Oh,
say.
yes. Yes.
आम्ही सगळी क्रिस्तांव ortoda एका मोनात भेटल्या सांजवांच्या नवाक आमी मान दिवंक आयल्या व्हडांतलो व्हड प्रभावी आमचो ना दुसरो सोर जावचो जाणटेपणार आवयन ताचे जल्माक हाडलो ऊंटाचे लोवेन नेस्तालो तेंकां पोटो चामड्याचो तोळरान वोट मोव आदी खावन जियेतालो सोरो बिलकुल पिये नासलोलो प्रमाणीक तो आसलो वायट तुजे तोंडार तो सांगपी बिये नासलो São João, वाटामकां दाखय वाटामकां दिसोना दोळे आसून कुट्टी आमी स्वतान चलूंक जायना उजवाड आमचेर घाल उरपा आमकां धाड उशीर करिनासतना हातोक आमचें चड वयर पावलां आनीक सोंसूंक जायना हांव तुमकां उपकारसान दिता जिवीत तुमचें बदलूं म्हजे उपरांत आनीक एक येता पवित्र आत्मो घेवन जेजू व्हडतो ता देवाची शेळी स्वर्गार थान देव लोली तिच्या रोगतान नितोळ जालाय तर तूं सुभागी बातिजमाच्या संस्कारा वरवीं नवी रचना जाल्या उरपेचे बायक उडकी मारून पवित्र जाल्या पातकाक लागोन मेलेली आमी सासणाक बी वाडलेल्या जेजून आमची सोडवण करून जिवंत जाल्या São João, वाटामकां दाखय वाटामकां दिसोना दोळे आसून कुट्टी आमी स्वतां चलूंक जायना उजवाड आमचे घर उरता आमकां धाड ओशिटोरी नासताना पातोक आमचे चड वयर पावला आनीक सोसूंक जायना पातोक आमचे चड वयर पावला आनीक सोसूंक जायना San João.
Thanks. Very interesting, Jaime. For those who were just wondering what this is all about, well, it's a San João song. San João is a local festival in Goa where people jump into the wells, and this is the song that Jaime made viral in at the San João Festival 2024, which was just a few months back, couple of months back in June end,
No,
and
actually 23. Initially
23,
23.
23,
Yeah.
23. But yeah, it got viral also now, and it's become very popular. The strange thing is the tune is a tune of a famous Konkani song on the same theme, but that is a mischievous and a playful song, whereas Jaime, who is a religious man at heart, wanted to bring back the song to its original meaning. Jaime, tell us more about it.
Yeah, so Fred, you know that I'm kind of a what I think practicing Catholic, and I am quite serious about my faith. And so you know that this happens all the time. There's nothing we can do. Christmas has already been commercialized, okay, with Santa Claus, and now everybody celebrates Christmas. Not that I'm against people of other faiths celebrating Christmas, more power to them, but they only celebrate the commercial version of it, okay. So that's kind of gone. And then Easter as well, so with Easter bunnies and all that stuff, so. And I thought, now San João festival was one thing that I thought was Goan heritage, and maybe in Portugal as well they do that, and I think maybe Brazil.
Explain a bit about the festival.
What,
About
the Goan festival in Goa?
Yeah.
Yeah, so in Goa, it's been celebrated since I can remember. And it is usually, of course, it always rains because it's in usually the monsoon has gotten going by that time. The wells are full. So we used to have lots of wells, both in our homes and then in the fields. And so we would usually choose certain wells that were not used for drinking to jump in there, because we didn't have swimming pools when we were growing up. I mean, I learned swimming jumping in the well. In fact, I was thrown in a well, and then, I was supposed to survive, then friends would just jump in if required. And that's how I learned to swim. That was my swimming. Kids now go to swimming classes and so on. It's an expensive ordeal. We learned like that. So during San João, what happens is there is a tradition. People wear these, they call them copelan, we call them. They're kind of wreaths made of colorful flowers, and they wear colorful clothes. That's what happens today. And they go and they shout San João loudly. They go in a procession, usually to the local chapel, and it involves a little bit, of course, a little bit of they sometimes on the way they would check if there's any ripe jackfruit. Somebody would climb on the tree. In those days, it was all allowed, permitted. People were very sporting, not like today. Everybody's like have big fences, 3 or 4 dogs, beware, and all of that. You could just go up, climb on somebody's tree, take jackfruits, and so that was part of the tradition. And there was another tradition linked to this. So if you were a recently married person, so you were a zawing, that is a son-in-law, you would go to your wife's native place, and they would entertain you, and they would come to your house and pretty much obligate you to sponsor the San João festivities. So you'd have to give a donation to the local chapel and pay for the booze, pay for all the other entertainment, and they would take you and honor you. And then you would be the first one to take the jump in the well. Everybody would jump into the well with you, with all the copela and all of that. And it was a fun thing, okay? Absolutely nothing malicious about it. But over time, it's been really commercialized. And in Goa, Goa is known for tourism. So we've commercialized Carnival. We've commercialized just about everything. And now we've commercialized San João. So for most people, San João is not a person. That bugged me a lot.
Saint John the Baptist. Saint John the Baptist is forgotten.
One of the greatest prophets, the last prophets of the Old Testament, and the heralder of the Messiah, is a person. And I said, this has become a festival. San Juan is like a festival. It's like, it's like the Sundance Festival or Rain Dance Festival or some kind of San Juan festival. So for most tourists, nobody will know. But even some Goans in the new generation may not even realize that there is a personality and a person is very holy person, a person who had taken a vow, a Nazarite vow, which is the strictest vow you can ever take. You cannot touch a drop of alcohol. You cannot cut your hair. And he lives he lives as an ascetic and strict, eating honey and wild honey and grasshoppers and wearing camel skin. Such a stringent life. And in his name, we're like having San Juan bashes, quote unquote bashes. I mean, what kind of a bash? So it really bothered me to no end. And then we have this San Juan song, which is fine, cultural song, talks about fun and, tu ilogere, aun ilogere, fine. Okay, I'm not judging that part. But I thought San Juan, the Saint John as a prophet and a saint deserved better. And I got an inspiration, and I'm telling you, Fred, I'll tell you how I got that inspiration. The moment I had that desire, going back to that passion again, I think it's almost like the spirit of John the Baptist himself understood my desire and said, Jimmy, you want to do this for me? I'm going to give you the lyrics here. And
So the
believe me,
lyrics are all yours. How fast did you write it?
I would say no more than 15 minutes.
My God.
And the initial draft, I would say 5 minutes. The 15 minutes for the editing and changing, so the rhyming and all of that. Actually, I had additional verses, but then I realized for the audiences today, with his, kind of like what do they call them? Short attention span. I said, no, this is enough. This is enough. But believe me, it just flowed. It was effortless. And which is why I say, anytime if something is passion, how do you know it's your passion? You know something is your passion if it becomes effortless. I'm not saying there is no effort. There is effort, but it's not painful. You're not struggling. It just
So
flows.
who cut up on the song? How did the song play out? You were mentioning something.
I
Who
mean,
noticed the song?
Okay. So I'll tell you what. So I wrote the song in 2022 for Sanjong, a little before Sanjong 2022, because, all these ads started to come up and this, Sanjong festivities here, even in Dubai, Sanjong, all the Goans want to celebrate Sanjong, all this started. And it started to irk me again. It's like once a year, this thing starts to bother me. And I wanted to do something about it. So I got this song out. Now my thing is, what do I do? How do I publish it? How do I get it out? I thought, no, I want to do it. I want to do justice to Saint John the Baptist. I want at least somebody to do a professional recording. So I found somebody, and they did the recording, but he didn't get time to actually edit it, and he kept saying, okay, I'm going to edit it, and I said, forget it, leave it. So nothing happened that year. 2022, nothing happened. I said, okay, if God wants this, it'll happen at some point. So 2023, I had already kind of retired. And I was at home and I said, here it is again. Sanjo is upon me and my song is sitting there, and I'll probably lose the paper. I'll forget the lyrics. I need to do something. So one fine day, I just picked up my guitar. I sat on the dining table and I said, there it is. I'm going to do it. What I did is I first played the rhythm. I recorded the rhythm and then played the rhythm, from my wife's phone. And then I sang the song, kind of sang the song. And then I sent it to a few people, just a few people on WhatsApp. I didn't even put my name on the video, credits, nothing. Because I thought it'll go to 10, 20 people, send it to my sister. The next thing I know, people are calling my wife, from a building society. Hey, this thing, my cousin sent me. Then my uncle sent me. And then someone from Dubai sent me. Somebody from UK sent me. Then I knew it had gone viral. Then it ended up on Walter Lobo's Facebook. And he put it on his Facebook.
Activist friend from Kalangut, yeah, Walter Lobo.
Kalangut. And he said, yeah, Babulak Inam Fao, which means this lad.
Sunny, this Sunny, this young Sunny.
Now even he doesn't know who he doesn't even know who I am, So, but it didn't matter to me. Seriously, I was happy that the song became viral and people were liking the song.
And then And then Jaim, people started crediting some priest about it, and
That's what this,
they
no,
said this is great.
nothing happened.
One sec,
2020.
one sec. One sec. So they said this is great. Like Father so and so has sung the song, and I was a bit shocked. I said like this looks like Jaime to me. He sounds like Jaime. But so I very tentatively went and wrote below one Facebook comment. Isn't that Jaime de Melo? So
Yeah.
sorry, that was when. That was when.
So that confusion happened this year. So last year,
Okay.
my unplugged version, it became viral, and those who knew me knew it was me. Those who didn't
Okay.
know me had no clue, but they were enjoying the song.
Okay.
So this year, I decided, I need to do a professional version. So I found a recording studio. I went there. I think it's called Trinity Recording Studio. I want to give them some credit, and I
Where's
went
that?
there
Where's Trinity?
in
Where's
Kodli
Trinity?
Mapsa. Kodli Mapsa.
Mapsa, Kohli.
So and he doesn't know Konkani. He's not into Konkani songs. I told him, look, this is a Konkani song. This is not the Bollywood stuff you're do. I mean, he does dubbing for Bollywood and stuff. I said, can you do a Konkani beat? And then he did one beat and it was all guitars. I said, no, this is not going to work. You need to put some trumpets and things like that because this is a typical Konkani song. So he got it. He got a friend to help out, and so it came out the way it came out. So I said, okay, this is a little more professional. So I put it out as a 2024 edition. Now, what happened was this also started to go viral. And this time I did it formally. So I put it on YouTube. So I said, let me get the due credit at least, not that I don't want to make money or anything like that. Not interested. I paid out of my pocket to get it recorded, so no intention of commercializing, but I thought, let me just put it on YouTube. That way I can put a description on it and so on. And it'll be there for posterity. Maybe my grandchildren will see it one day. So I put it there, and then I put the link on Facebook and all my social media. And again, it started to circulate. And then suddenly somebody pulls up my 2023 version, the unplugged one, and puts below, because it has no name, no credits, nothing, says Father Arlene de Melo. Listen to this wonderful song sung by Father Arlene de Melo. So see, it didn't bother me. It bothered me slightly, but not too much, because I said, it doesn't matter, because people don't know. Now, it's interesting because first he has my last name. He is a de Melo. Second, he's from Moira, my village.
Okay. I see.
Yes. And then third, he's a priest. So I guess spiritual song, and with fairly good lyrics that you would expect only a priest to come up with. And it's de Melo. And so I thought, okay, and this is what happened. So then people started to write to me, and I got irked because now people are bothering me about this thing. And so I went on Facebook and put out a correction, and then all my friends like you, whoever knew me, started to run to my defense, and that's what it just that's what happened. And
I can't stop smiling because it's such a strange story. But I mean, it's fascinating. It's fascinating, Jaime, and I think your stories are also very fascinating. Your love for Konkani, your love for languages is fascinating. But we wouldn't do justice if we didn't spend a little time looking at your involvement with computers, which was very early, and it went from being a commerce student here to studying computers in the US. How did that go? Where did it take you? What were the languages you encountered, and when was
okay.
it?
Yeah. So I left Goa in 1981, exactly in summer of 1981. So my dad worked in Abu Dhabi, and so I went there, kind of an exploratory visit. In those days, the prospects were limited. My percentage, either in my 10th or my 12th, was left much to be desired, to tell you the truth. So I knew that the only option for me was to do my BCom, which I would have naturally by default pursued. But I thought, well, let's spend the summer with Dad and we'll see what happens. So while I'm there, in those days, there was not a lot of entertainment in the Gulf. People just got together during the weekends, cooked food, had a few drinks, chit-chatted, and so on. That was life, entertainment, not like today, and which is why people were able to save as well. So my dad's friend said, "Are kide kota re? Chada tuzo." Meaning, what is he planning to do? Kide gorong sotta re? 12 zalia ta kide kota. So you understand, right? I need to translate
Yeah.
it in English. And what is your son planning to do? Now that he's finished his 12. And I said, they asked me as well. I said, I have no clue. I have absolutely no clue. I think I'm going to go back after the summer holidays and pursue my BCom. So one of them said, I think the BCom couldn't get gotta. What BCom is not going to get you anywhere. Why don't you pursue computers? That's the latest thing. Believe me,
Which year
I
this was? This was 81.
81, summer of 81.
Okay.
So June, July, think of June, July of, no, sorry, think of April, May, our holidays, India holidays. And computers, I said, computers, I've never thought of computers. And, believe me, I didn't even know how to spell computers at that time because we were not exposed to computers. So, but they said, computer couldn't that's the latest, greatest. So, and I've always had it in me that I need to be different, which is why I went to the UK, which is why I pursued US, because I could have easily worked in the Gulf and gotten a good salary and done it. But I wanted to explore. I'm an adventurer by nature. I like to explore. So I told my dad, yes, I want to do that. Whatever they are saying, computers. I want to do that. So mother daddy fullo, so he said, oh, maza put computers kata. So he talked to my cousins in the UK and said, help my son out, I'll support him financially. And so I went to the UK. Um, I tried to do sign up for a 3-year university in. I really couldn't. I couldn't hack it. It was difficult because they were teaching Fortran as the language, which is very difficult, more scientific, and they were heavy maths and trigonometry and algebra which I was weak at. So I said, no, this is not what I want to do. So I found um, um, a course in the COBOL language, focused on COBOL language, the mainframes. So that I could do it. I could do it, and I did that. I think it was 6 or 7 or 8 month course. I did very well in COBOL. By the way, that's where I met Malcolm Noronha, who is another colleague of mine, who was doing also computers programming in some other language somewhere else, somewhere on Oxford Street. So there were two goons studying kind of programming on Oxford Street in 1981. And just think about that. So we connected as well. So when I finished that, I came back to Abu Dhabi. And now my dad said, well, you have to find a job. Well, I couldn't find a job. So my dad, through his contact, initially I worked in some office doing some, it's some construction office. So I was doing photocopies for them. Can you believe it? And I thought, I didn't do computer programming to come and do photocopying here, And I started to complain and murmur. And my dad said, what do you want to do? What do you expect? Everybody starts like this and so on. But then I think I got on his nerves enough that he spoke to one of his friends who used to do all of his ticket booking. My dad used to work for a travel agency, a well-known travel agency in Abu Dhabi. In that building, there used to be a agency for NCR, and NCR was, National Cash Register. So they used to make mini computers, and they had deployed quite a few mini computers in some local companies in Abu Dhabi. So my dad's friend said, okay, we have a medical company where we've put a mini computer, but the guy who's working there, he only knows to operate. He doesn't know any programming. And we need somebody with COBOL language programming. So, ta-da, Jamie to the rescue. So they put me in that company. I got a good salary. And for the first time, I started coding. And, I did some programming for that. I did a little very basic payroll application for them. Then they decided to buy a personal PC, a desktop PC, which ran on Microsoft DOS in those days. If anybody, PC DOS, and PC DOS and basic language. So I had to quickly learn that. I was a COBOL expert, but I quickly learned, languages. Remember languages, there are transferable skills, both from computer language to these other languages. So
Languages, right.
I quickly learned basic. I took a course. I signed up for a course in Abu Dhabi. They were, that was a big business, by the way. Schools started propping up, where they teach you programming in 6 months, 3 months. So I took basic, and I started handling this computer room, and I still remember the owner. He was an Arab guy, and he was very proud of his computer room. He had this mini computer, NCR mini computer, and a desktop, and he would bring his colleagues, his other Arab colleagues, and he would come in. Jamie, give a tour to my friends, show them what it. And I'm going, what the heck do I show them? This is, what do I demonstrate? So I would just, what I would do? I would log into the operating system level, and I would open up a programming, a file, like a COBOL program, source code, and I would let it run, scroll on the screen. And these Arabs would go, wallah, it's very good, very good, very good, And I would show them a few screens on that desktop, and my boss would be happy, and he would go. And so that was life. And then I will tell you what happened quickly. So an engineer used to come to do maintenance for the mini computer, and he would come and open up the whole thing. And he would go at the chip, at the board level, the circuit board level, and he started to do stuff. And I was fascinated by that, because I've just done computer programming course, right? 6 months course. What do you expect? So I got to talking with him. I said, what have you studied? So he said, I've done my electronic engineering, my bachelor's electronics engineering. And I got him to tell you. So that worm entered, okay? Bachelor's in computer engineering or electronics engineering, the worm entered. So I had a finance manager. He was very motivating. I told him, look, I want to do something more than this. I want to do my further studies in computing. So he said, I think your best bet is go to the States. Whatever you've saved, you'll be able to get part-time jobs there. You'll get scholarships. If you get decent grades, I would recommend you explore. So in those days, no internet, no email. I would hit the US embassy, sit there, go through the yearbooks of various universities. I applied. I got 2 or 3 universities, got admission. And next thing I knew, I was in Mankato, Minnesota, knew nobody, nothing. And that's how my career started. And I did my bachelor's, and my first job was in 3M. No, I got an internship in Honeywell, doing COBOL programming, doing maintenance of some program, 6 months. So I got some cash, and then I finished. I graduated, and my first job was at 3M, corporate job.
3M was big. 3M was big in those days, no?
3M is big even now, because in those days, it had 62,000 products. It was known for innovation. The Post-it note, the famous Post-it note, all the adhesives, the road traffic signs, it's all sandpaper, it's all 3M. I mean, it's impossible for you to live your life on a daily basis without touching at least one 3M product, something. So I got heavily into the IT career. I started with mainframe computing. It was an IBM mainframe. I learned, of course, I did a lot of COBOL programming. Then there was something called Power Builder. So you didn't have to program screens from scratch. You could generate screens. So interactive screens, I started programming that. And then slowly I moved into in those days, HP, distributed environment. So I got into HP, UX, so Unix, HP's flavor of Unix. I learned Unix, before this, I only knew mainframe. So now I moved into distributed. I started programming in Oracle. I learned how to manage I was a DBA for Oracle Database Management System. I learned how to code in PL SQL and SQL. So that's, I moved into that. And after that, I moved into systems analysis. And from there, I moved to a consulting company. I started to do more of business consulting, analysis, business consulting, IT strategy, all of that. And to fast forward, in the year 2000, when I left the United States and I came to Dubai to work, I got into storage area networks, which is SANs, they call it, distributed, how to infrastructure. So instead of each computer having its own captive storage, how to take storage and network it so that multiple servers could utilize that same storage. Because in the old days, every computer would come with its own storage and was hardly utilized. You'd use 20%, 30%, rest would be wasted. And if your disk crashed, you lost your data. So, with this network storage, the beauty of that was it was a shared resource, and it could go across the network. So your storage need not be next to your computer or your server or even your laptop. It could be in another country, over network, over IP link. You could use that storage. You could do disaster recovery, so you could send it over the wire and a second copy of that storage somewhere else. So if there's an earthquake, flood, or fire, you would have a copy of that data, and all the servers could point to that. So I got into that, and in the last 10 years, I got into cybersecurity as well, but not into heavy technical, but more of consulting and selling cybersecurity solutions. So I moved more into infrastructure and moved away from applications, and so I stopped programming. But this background helped me, and the young people who come today, who are doing Python programming and all of this fascinating stuff, doing machine learning and AI, they're fascinated to come across somebody like me, because I've seen everything. It's like you and me. We've seen what life was before electricity. Before, we studied on lamps, with petrol in it and lamps. I don't know about you, but I studied that way. And
Me too. Still 1970, yes, me too.
1970, 71, I got electricity, and the first tube light that I turned on, it looked like lightning. It was amazing. I was like blinded by it. So we came like that. So I've seen the mainframe. I've even seen the punch card. I didn't program with punch card because I was more advanced, but I have seen punch cards. I know how punch card. Imagine people used to code on the punch card, and if the deck of punch cards fell, you were in trouble because it was gone.
Right. Yeah.
So from there to distributed computing, then to client server, and then to systems analysis, database administration, consulting, and then looking at current cybersecurity, even cloud. I started to sell cloud solutions. But I got good at understanding architecture. So I didn't need to get into the nitty-gritty. Then all the technical guys, the young lads, can figure that out. But my clients loved me because I could talk their language. I could talk the business language. I never went into technicalities. I always had a sales engineer or a pre-sales guy with me. I started the conversation not too unlike the way you started conversation with me. How's things? What's going on in your environment? Anything new, and what are your challenges? What is the business troubling you about? And you say, oh my God, Jamie, my CEO went to some seminar and he's talking about cloud now. Cloud is so new, it's still a buzzword, and my CEO wants to see cloud. How can I explain to him all the challenges and the risks and so on? And so this is how I would start. The security challenges. Some of them would have an incident, and somebody got a virus in the environment or was hacked, and they didn't want to tell anybody. And how do we get this thing patched up? How do I get all my servers and PCs patched up? And so I learned all of this. And even today, my previous company calls me because I can talk. I don't need to log in and do anything, write any scripts, but I can talk. I can understand architecture. I can connect business with technology. And that is a knack few people have today. Even the people who are heavy into technology, I keep telling them, why do you dive into technology? And why do you immediately just explain, give simple analogies? Sometimes my pre-sale guys would hate me because they would create this presentation, 50 slides, okay, 50 slides. And I would give one simple analogy and my client would get it, something they wouldn't get with all these slides. And my pre-sales guy would say, Jamie, what is this, man? I worked all night last night putting this deck together, and one stupid analogy you give, then the client gets it. I said, well, you have to learn something from that. Don't complicate.
James, that's a very amazing story, because in brief, you've told us, not in brief, we've actually spoken for almost an hour, but it's past like a minute. And you've told us, your story from being a young village schoolboy in Goa in the late 70s to going out to the Gulf and struggling to get in and managing to do it, and getting into computers, a full range of it from a very early generation, to learning foreign languages, which I think is very important to go out to places like Goa, and all these kind of things, which people today have a lot to learn from. So I'm really grateful you shared it. But to end, I'd like to ask you one question. What's your kind of advice to the younger generation in Goa, maybe from a village, who feels that we are not as empowered as, say, people from a big city or something like that? So what's your advice to them? How do they make it in a 21st century kind of world?
Sure. So, one thing I would say to them is I envy them because of the resources they have at their disposal. And, they are now the modern generation. They grew up in the digital economy. Everything is at the tip of their finger. They have access to everything. You don't need to, like me, go to the United States or to the UK or somewhere to access the best of knowledge, the best experts. You can go and listen to a talk, listen to a seminar, log in, go to any site and get the best training and get certified today anywhere. But I think what I would tell them is learning. You have to invest in knowledge. Knowledge is power. This is what I would say. And I'm blessed. I was blessed to be in IT because one thing that, as opposed to if I had done my BCom, because I've seen accountants. The accountants, their debit credit never changes and it will never change. It can be automated. The ledger can be automated, but the basic concepts don't change. But I tell you, in IT, if I'm not learning something new in 6 months, I'm outdated. I'm outdated. I'm constantly learning, constantly going to YouTube and listening to stuff on AI, about machine learning, deep learning. Even now, I'm retired, but I'm still curious because I don't want to lose touch. I want to know what's the next thing. And I believe till I die, I will be learning. So, ongoing learning, continuous learning is really important. And so, if you're not learning new things, don't stagnate because the world is moving at a fast pace. And I will tell you, and I'm not a prophet, but I think I can make a good guess. Your next competition is not going to be a human being. Your next competition, you'll be competing with AI, not with another human being. Okay, you'll be competing with AI. So if you want to be competitive, if you don't want AI or some robot to replace you, okay, what you need to do is say, what is an area, what is a niche, what kind of a job is not repetitive, what kind of job cannot be automated because it requires human touch, it requires creative thinking, it requires an emotional touch. For example, I will say a salesperson, a sales guy will never be replaced by AI. You know why? Sales is about human to human connection. It's about, because AI is not going to be able to have that connection. It's my ability to say to that guy, who won football, who's your favorite team. These kinds of connections, what's keeping you awake at night. You need skills like this, and no computer, no AI can replace a sales guy like me, okay, the former me. So I think you need to find out, what is it, a nurse, perhaps a nurse, a caregiver, a senior citizen, a caregiver. AI will not be able to replace that. But all these other things, most of it, anything that can be automated will be automated, and AI will do it better. They will not take smoking breaks, coffee breaks. They will not get tired. They will work 24 hours, and you will not be able to compete. So you need to find a niche and you need to stay up to date. Continuous learning is what I would say. One advice I would give them: explore, learn new languages, at least one foreign language other than Marathi Konkani, that is a foreign language, meaning something that is spoken in some other continent. That makes you valuable. It can, when there are 3,000 CVs or 1,000 CVs or 500 CVs, everybody is qualified. They all have computing engineering degrees. Something needs to set you apart. A foreign language will set you apart. So this is what I travel at least once, even if you have to take a small loan. travel, the best thing that happened is that I travel. It opens your horizons. Don't stay in your same environment. Change your environment, even within Goa. If you're in Goa, you cannot afford to travel. Change your environment. Don't hang out with the same friends, with the same people who have the same knowledge. Learn something new. Be adventurous. Explore. That's my advice.
Amazing. And to really conclude, some contacts or your YouTube channel that you could like to share with the audiences who will watch this now or later.
Well, actually, I don't have an extensive. I have a YouTube channel, but there is only a few songs on there, so there's not much on there. Yeah. So if
But an
anybody,
email address, email or WhatsApp or something that you don't mind don't mind sharing.
my personal contact, not a problem.
Yeah.
I can share my number. I'm on
Yeah.
WhatsApp on that number. So it's an India number. So +91 seven
Yeah.
six 20445413. So 7620445413. I'm on WhatsApp on that.
Great. Great. Let me just, yeah. Oops. Yeah. One sec. Yeah, that's it. So, Jain, thanks a ton. Thanks for all your time. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for the knowledge exchange, the
Thank
knowledge
you, Fred.
transfer.
Thank,
And
thank
really
you.
nice
Thank
knowing
you
you
for
all
the
these years. It's always a pleasure
and
talking to
you're
you.
such a good interviewer. You make it so easy. So thank you.
Yeah, yeah, that's my only claim to fame. I say it's painless. So those who get afraid of an
No,
interview,
I,
I say
I,
it's more
I,
like
I I disagree. I don't think that's your only claim.
no,
But
no, anyway, okay.
yeah, yeah,
Bye,
you're
bye,
just
Jaim.
being
All the
modest.
best. Thank you. Thanks a ton. I'll cut here. Okay, bye, bye, bye.
Okay, yeah, thank you.